Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. I'm so very happy to welcome you. As you know, this is the second day of webinars for the initiative organized by the International Coaching Federation Switzerland on the occasion of the International Coaching Week, which is a global event where coaches from all over the world offer pro bono sessions and learning opportunities for everyone to become more familiar with coaching. I'm Saba Imru Mathieu, and together with a group of coaches, I've organized this event, and it is my honor to be here to serve all of our audience, many of whom are members of international organizations or NGOs. Our speaker today is Dr. Archana Tyagi, and I am very, very honored to have her today. She is a clinical psychologist. She is a university professor. She is a certified coach, ICF credentialed with many years of experience. Today, she will guide you to a better understanding of what transactional analysis is and how, combined with coaching, it can help your working life. Thank you, Archana. So you have the floor.
Thank you. You have been very kind. And thank you for being here with your such a very busy schedule. You have planned to be here. Thank you so much for that. And I'm sure that today with our interaction, I always learn. So I'm going to learn from each and every one of you. We are going to learn together. And as Saba has announced, I will be happy to take up the questions in the end. It will be, please do not hesitate to write your questions in the chat box. And I would like to keep it a little simple, keeping in mind the concept is extremely interesting. The idea is to take away things which we can apply and able to reflect upon and able to understand our thoughts, actions, and behaviors. Why we are doing the way we are and what we are doing. What is the history behind it, and is it possible to understand is it possible to understand the cause of our behavior? So do not hesitate to write anything. The particular session will be non-judgmental and unbiased. Always remember, this is the one thing we as coaches always share with everybody, and we tend to believe in that particular dictum. So if everybody is ready and they have written from where they are from, thank you so much. I would like you to take you through a little bit an experiential journey or a learning. Please, can I request all of you to put your foot down, if possible, on the floor. Close your eyes. And let's go into the journey when we were 5-6 years old. And I'm also closing my eyes. I would like to take you through that particular, journey. Try to remember yourself when you were 6 years old. If I say 6 to 7 year old, you're a young boy or a girl. You have opened the gate of your house, and then you have opened the door of the house. When you have entered your house, you just have to get your memory. When you have entered the house, please go straight into the kitchen of the house. What kind of an experience this particular memory tends to bring you in? What kind of a smell in the kitchen was there? Who you have encountered in the kitchen? What was your experience when you entered in the kitchen, whether it was a mother or a father or a primary caregiver, your uncle, your aunt, you were with your brother or sister or nephew or anyone of whatever age, whatever relationship you had. So try to visualize that particular kind of memory when you were 6 years old and you have entered, opened the gate, the door, when you have entered the kitchen. At that journey, what kind of memories, who all were there, what kind of a smell you were able to inhale, and what kind of experience it has given you or provided to or extended to you. If possible, I'll be very happy if you can write down in the chat box, because this is something we are going to bring in again and again. This particular experiential learning, the memories, the kind of emotions it has brought in, again, going back into your younger self, and what kind of emotions, thoughts, actions you were able to bring in. We will be able to deal with it maybe a little later on, as our format of webinar is a little different, but try to bring that particular memory. Because today we are going to discuss, many of you might be aware, many of you for the first time might be hearing the concept of transactional analysis. This concept has been coined, framed, and introduced by Dr. Eric Berne, a psychiatrist, in the 60s. But this particular concept has been still popular because people have been using it and they're able to apply it in their personal and professional life. So we are planning to use it, and let me just start sharing my screen, and then I will bring the concepts and the questions which you might like to ask, might like to note down. So I have tried to bring in this particular, as a coach or as a human being, how we can apply and improve our interpersonal communication with coaching and transactional analysis. So as I have already shared with you, transaction analysis has been coined and conceptualized by Dr. Eric Berne, a psychiatrist. He was a medical practitioner, and as psychiatrists are, and he was able to, and this is the concept of, but which is still very much in favor and very much in vogue today. When we are talking about this improve interpersonal communication with coaching and transaction analysis, yesterday we had started the webinar from Saba. And Saba was very much, she has taken us through the process of what coaching is all about. And there are few cardinal rules of coaching. Ask, not tell, if you have attended her webinar, and if not, then also it's all right. And how active listening can be a part of this particular concept. So how can we use this, improve our interpersonal communication with coaching and transaction analysis? So transaction analysis is a psychoanalytic theory and therapeutic method, as I've said. And in the context of transaction analysis, a transaction refers to the communication exchanges between people. So when we talk about transactions refers to the communication exchanges between people. And in simple terms, when we talk about transaction in coaching, actually, how we use the coaching in interpersonal communication, with the concept of transactional analysis, it tends to bring in insights into emotions and behaviors. Again and again, we are going to talk about the insights into emotions and behavior. Emotions are very, very important in our day-to-day transactions and our everyday life. Every day, the kind of emotions we display, we experience, all of them, they become a part of our journey, our part of interaction, our part of our understanding of the people. It improves communication skills and it builds strong relationships. If given a chance, we will again come back into this particular concept and slide. And maybe if not the slide, maybe we'll remember it. And I will like to bring it back to you, how understanding from how we are transacting, are we able to bring the insights into emotions and behaviors, improve communication skills, and build strong relationships. For a healthy and normal life, which we all aspire to be, I think we need these kind of insights. So when we are talking about this, let me go back to the next slide. We all have three ego states. I will be, please listen to me. This is something which is very, very important. I like you to be a little alert in there. Parent, adult, and child. We all are aware who our parents are. We all have experienced, and many of us are parents right now, today as well. We all have transactions with other people internally or with ourselves. We all unconsciously activate our ego states. That means our transactions, which can lead to conflict, negative emotions, pain, etc. So when we are talking about parent, adult, and child, what do we mean by parent, adult, and child? When I have taken you through that experiential journey, when I've asked you to visualize yourself as a 6-year-old child, open the gate and the door of your house, go into the kitchen where the most of the actions of the house takes place, and try to bring in the kind of memories which were in store for you at that particular time. And those memories are still relevant for us. For many of us, we tend to relate with it very well. And these are unconsciously, they are shaping our behavior gradually from time to time, and we tend to imbibe those memories, those emotions which are unconscious in nature. Again and again, I'm using the ego state. Let's not confuse it with the current dictionary of the which we see in the Google or as well. Its ego state is a consistent pattern of feelings and thoughts according to the consistent pattern of behavior. So when as an adult, or these are the now, this will make it a little bit more clearer. Eric Burns' ego state of being. When we are talking about transaction, parent ego state, that means it's like a sponge. The way you have seen your parents behaving. And we as like in today's, we all are adults, so-called grown-up people. So we have absorbed that behavior of our parents like a sponge. The kind of behavior they have displayed, the thoughts, and we copied it from parents or parental figures. If not parents, then maybe the primary caregivers. Because this is something which is very, very important. So what happens in life? How are we bringing in this parental ego state into our normal transaction? When I'm using the word sponge, that means am I bringing in the kind of behavior my parents used to display toward me in my actions today? As when I'm interacting it with the younger people, my kids or my niece and nephews, or whether my colleagues in the office or wherever I'm working, or I'm like, it's a personal and professional life. I will always like to pause yourself for time whenever we are discussing these things and try to go back and think one behavior which you think that you have copied it with the behavior which you have seen your parents have been displaying towards you. You have copied that, and you are like replaying it again and again in your personal and professional life. And what is this parent ego state? I will be taking you through. It's from the past. Whatever you have seen in the past, your parents have been doing, and you are trying to copying it. When we are young and small, and whatever world we see through our parents' eyes, we think that that's one of the best part. And this is the ideal, nobody can challenge it, and we tend to evaluate those things. As an adult ego state, the behaviors and thoughts and that are direct responses to here and now. Whenever we are interacting with other people from an adult ego state, we tend to have direct responses to the here and now. That means they are the problem solvers, they live in the realities. Isn't it? This is what we expect from an adult. And child ego state, the behaviors and thoughts which are replayed from childhood. So whatever we have observed, whatever we have seen, the kind of behavioral experiences we had during our childhood, the same kind of behavior are we bringing in our day-to-day experiences? This is something which we need to be very careful about. So please remember, are we bringing in the parental ego state in our day-to-day transaction at our personal and professional front? When we are saying personal and professional front, things from the past, your behavior from the past, which you are evaluating, which you are copying it. Are you behaving from adult, very rational and a logical thinker who tends to live here and now? Or as a child, are you trying to bring in the ego state behavior thoughts which you have experienced in the childhood? It might be a very joyful experience. It might be a very bullied one, very regressive one also. And what happened, the kind of experiences, the three which we tend to bring in from three kinds of ego states, do we tend to bring in our day-to-day life? And when I'm talking about day-to-day life, are we doing that from our as a coach and coachee? As a coach, am I able to understand myself when I'm dealing with the coachee, the person sitting opposite to me? Am I bringing am I conversing with the concerned person from a parent ego state, an adult ego state, or child ego state? And somewhere down the line, this is what I have experienced with my coaches as well. Though they are aspiring to be great leaders, very senior persons in their organization, but somewhere down the line, they are stuck somewhere because the kind of behavior which they have seen in their parents, which they are bringing it again and again into their day-to-day life, and they can be in contrast with their parental and child ego state. For example, when you have been you're interacting, you're remembering the child ego state, the experiences which you have gone through. At that time, you have been a little bit, you have been bullied in the school. Or when as a parent, you have seen, when you were a child and you have seen your parent as a very docile one. So they are in conflict with each other. So how do we tend to bring this particular concept in our personal and professional life is when we try to understand, when we try to relate, how can we bring in and self-awareness, which is a hallmark of, again, an emotional intelligence, which is a hallmark of transaction analysis, and which is a hallmark of any intelligent person, or a person who is very well versed and aware. They try to bring in and they try to keep on, like you say, keep on updating their behavior. As we say in our software, computer software, that every time, every few days or every in a few months, our computers tend to get themselves updated. So are we correcting ourselves somewhere down the line? Are we reminding ourselves somewhere down the line, hey, this is not a good thing, and I have been blessed to I got a chance, so why not let me take advantage of this and let me try to see where my behavior is leading me. Each of us is really three people. And what do we mean by that when we say that? That means all of us, we tend to interact when we interact with people from parent, adult, and ego state. All of us, it's not me or you, every one of us, we tend to interact from parent, adult, and ego state. But the intensity, the degrees, they differ. Like in some, the parental ego state is very high, and in comparison, comparatively, the adult and child ego state is less. In another person, he or she tends to live in an adult ego state, and comparatively their parent and child ego state is small, whereas in the third, the child is very high. Child ego state is very high, and side by side, the parental and adult ego state tends to go down a little bit. They get reduced in that particular order. I'm sure all of you can see the ego states stuff we are made of. I'm sure you can see a small child, an adult, and a parent. If you can see little clearly, carefully, you will be able to see this. And it's just to bring a little light and lighter moments in our life. So all of us, we are comprising of, and the stuff we are made of are comprising of all these three parts: a child, an adult, and a parent. And depending on our earlier experiences and our awareness, we tend to bring in, we tend to, if our parental ego state is taking more space, then it is overpowering our remaining adult and child ego state. And we tend to, guided by our parental ego state more in comparison to adult and child ego state. The same way, if our child ego state is encompassing more and more space, then again it tends to bring down the space for the other two ego state, which are adult and parent. So you have to decide somewhere down the line, side by side, keep on thinking. Maybe you will like to note down. Maybe you will like to maybe like to take the feedback from our near and dear ones, maybe later, with your actions, with with the kind of emotions, thoughts, and behavior which you display. To what extent you tend to behave from which ego state. And I thought, let me put a little humor into this ego states and its stages. You can see an adult which has been pulled by the parents and the child ego state. Sometimes the situation, sometimes the compulsions in life are not so favorable towards us. And we tend to get pulled in many directions. And when we tend to get pulled in many directions, we tend to get, in one direction, the adult ego state is pulled by the past and past of the parental ego state. At the same time, the whimsical nature of the child ego state. And ultimately, you have to ask which ego state should I allow to overpower me. The ego states model can be used specifically in coaching agendas when leadership style is the key ingredient. Many times when you're doing executive and leadership coaching, and the ultimate goal of the coaching agenda of that particular model is that people are planning to move ahead in life, crossing all the ladders and removing the obstacles. But sometimes they are not able, their self-regulation, when I say emotional self-regulation, tends to become hindrance in their behavior pattern. What are these emotional regulations? The sudden outburst of anger, the sudden outburst of resentment, and which tends to get displayed in their behavior. And they are unable to identify or realize from where this emotional self-regulation, less emotional self-regulation is coming, and where they need to put a stop to it, where they should be able to make a note of it so that they can keep and not behaving in a reactive manner. Rather, they should be able to move in a, rather should be able to behave in a proactive manner. So one has to be really, really careful when we are using the ego states model, which is used very effectively in counseling, in therapy as well. And as a coach, one has to identify that he or she should, if he or she is signed up for a coaching session, so they need to understand that they need to keep it a coaching session and not shift it into a counseling or therapy sessions. Please always remember that there is a very thin line between a coaching session and a counseling and therapy sessions. When we talk about parent ego states, there are always, there will be consistent feelings and behaviors. And when you're rooted in the past, you contain the attitude, feelings, and behaviors which we have incorporated from our parents or primary givers. When we have talked about parents and primary givers, now here this is also one thing which is very important is there are nurturing and caring. Nurturing parental attitude, parental parenting, and then there is a critical parent or controlling parent. So please try to remember the kind of parental model which you have in the past, but whether they were critical or controlling, that is should. You should not be doing like this. You should be doing like this, like very authoritative. criticizing, reprimanding, censoring, punishing, etc. Or your parents are very much nurturing, they were caring, loving, or helping. And to what extent it's important to remember that it's not that important that what kind of parents you had. It's important to remember present today that what kind of parental model are you putting it again in your behavior day to day. Are you like displaying the same behavior at your workplace and in your personal life? And to what extent is it benefiting you, or to what extent it is like it's not fulfilling the purpose? Please always remember this. To what extent are we, the kind of behavior which we have seen in the past, are we bringing it in our behavior? Or somewhere down the line, when you are being an adult literally and metaphorically, you are an adult, you are able to visualize it, you are able to see that to what extent it is serving the purpose and to what extent it's not serving the purpose. So please remember the broad outline, nurturing parent and critical or controlling parent. And remember that you are not only you don't only bring this kind of parental attitude in your professional and personal, both the lines. So when we take a look at it, the parent ego state, it contains recording of everything the child heard or saw the parents do. And many of us will be surprised to know to what extent we are bringing that parent ego state, which we have seen in the past. And we are trying to bring in or evaluate or copy that particular behavior, and we are displaying it with our near and dear ones or at the workplace. And not necessarily we are able to, while we are replicating it, it's like beneficial for us, or it might not be beneficial for us. So think of a person. I would like you to think of a reflective exercise. Think of a person whose love you craved most. There are many parents who never tend to display the kind of action, the kind of love they feel towards their kids, and no touching, no hugging, and never praising. So what did you have to be for that person to accept and love you? Were you making some extra effort for that person to love you and accept you? And what did you have to think or do again for their approval? So as a person, think of whose love you craved most. What did you have to be for that person to accept and love you? What did you have to think or do to gain their approval? Being a sensitive child, you were always craving for the approval or the affection for your parents. But being a very critical or controlling parents, they thought that many times parents think that whatever they're doing for the best of their kids. And then you, as a child, you were craving. When you were a small child, think of the person who loved you, craved most. And are you one of the sorry, one of the most important thing is, are you bringing that kind of behavior in your present day behavior? Are you still feeling or craving for the love and affection of which you have missed out in the childhood? And still you are also craving for the approval of the people with whom you are interacting at the personal or professional front. So, so to move on further, when you were a kid, how do you remember your parents behaving? Were they critical? Were they distrustful of others or overly cautious? They were reckless? What were their beliefs about the world and the people around us? So pay attention to which elements of your child and parent ego states you have integrated into your own thoughts, beliefs, and behavior. I'll give you just few seconds. If you just want to make a note of it, pay attention to which elements of your child and parent ego states you have integrated into your own thoughts, beliefs, and behavior. And you are displaying it today itself in your behavior. When we talk about adults, they live here and now. The transactions they are having with your colleagues and acquaintances, these are usually straightforward without a lot of emotional triggers and baggages, and they are very logical thinkers when we talk about the adults. Please remember, they live here and now, and whenever they transact in a very rational and logical manner. So in the adult ego state, we responding to the here and now situation with all the resources available. So are you somewhere down the line make three rounders: parent, adult, and a child ego state? I will keep on making those. And if you have to put it 100% for all the three rounders, which one you would like to give how many percentages? It will help you in understanding your behavior today. And when we talk about the child, it contains the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that we experienced as a child. A natural child, curious, creative, open, and loving. Their adaptive child, guilty, afraid, expressed, anxious. So here also, when we are behaving from a child perspective, we are talking about natural child, very spontaneous, curious, creative, and an adaptive child who, as the name, the word itself suggests, who tends to get themselves adapted to the situation. They can be afraid because they are not able to adapt well. They can be depressed, anxious, envious because they feel that others are able to adapt themselves, and trying to please everyone because they are trying to adapt themselves to the situation. So you will get the picture which kind of a child you are from your own childhood. Number one, parental. Please remember, when we talk about parent, nurturing and critical, adult, here and now, child, they contains the thought, feelings, and behavior that we experienced as a child. And as a part of child, there are two kinds of child's behavior. Were you a natural child, or still you are a natural child? When you respond being very spontaneous, curious, and creative, and sometimes it tends to bring a little recklessness or selfishness also because you're not careful or concerned about others. An adaptive child who is trying to please everyone because they really want to get themselves adapted to the situation. So as a coachee and as a coach, when we are trying to understand, it's very important for a coach to understand with the question, as we are looking into it, ask, not tell. Please try to ask open-ended questions. Try to understand from which ego state your coachee is transacting, or coachee is verbalizing, or coachee is interacting with you. Somewhere down the line where this coachee is stuck in the past as a parent, or as a child, or you are comfortable that the coachee is living here and now, and he's a rational human being who tends to interact with people. When they're interacting with the people, they are trying to bring in rational, logical thinking. As we can see from the the expressions, innocence of the childhood, when we are in the child, it means that we think and act like the child we once were. So you can see the carefree and the spontaneous, the nature or the verdict of the child, and how the ego states show up. When the controlling parent, this can be firm. At the same time, as you can see, if it's firm, as a parent, you have seen your parents behaving in a firm manner, but whenever it tends to exceeds, it tends to become domineering. The same way your parents have been nurturing, they were caring enough, but at the same time, are they smothering you with their too much excessive care? They are not giving you enough scope for growing up. So there is a very thin line between the firm and domineering and the caring and the smothering. Adult, of course, there are no subdivisions. As an adapted child, were you courteous, or somewhere down the line you have been so much into adaptive mode that you have become rebellious and compliant? Or you were a natural child and you are bringing in that particular natural child tendencies. You have been spontaneous, and in the but at the same time, since you have been a natural child, you wanted to do everything on your own. You tend to become selfish or reckless. So as we have seen this, all of us, we are having all the three in us. parent, adult, and C. And as you can see from this graph, in some of us, we tend to imbibe the parental ego states is very high. It can be controlling, critical, or it can be nurturing. And when it tends to become it tends to become 40 or 50, then adult and ego state tends to become 25. In the same manner, the P and C in the second, in the adult is high, it's 50, or then the P and C tends to become 25. The same way, we can see that PAC, the child is more all the time you are enjoying life, or all the time you're reckless of the situation, you're not observant of the situation, you're not adaptive to the situation, and you're trying to bring in a lot of joy and a spontaneous expression, which can also tends to become selfish kind of a person. Then the P and A tends to become 25. You can see that it degrees depends, whether 70, 30, 15, 15, or so and so forth. So you have to look at your, there's something which is very important, egogram. I will request all of you, as far as you understand yourself, to make an egogram of yourself. The length of the bar is not important. Important is to what extent are we able to compare it we are able to compare it in relation to the other bars. You can see the natural parent, critical parent, adult, and spontaneous child, or the natural child, or the adapted child. So you can, the length of the bar is not important. It's an intuitive way of showing how important each of the functional ego states are there in your personality. So if you are a coach and you are making use of it, as a coach also, it's very important for us to have a natural awareness regarding ourselves. To what extent are we bringing, and are we imposing unknowingly, unconsciously, are we imposing our ways of behaving as a parent, adult, or a child at our coach? And if you are a coachee, is there somewhere down the line, are you aware, are you trying to become aware that there are some blocks, some blockages, some something which is hindering in your progress? And it will help you having drawing this particular picture, which has been devised by Jack Ducey. It's not a work of Eric Berne. It is a devised by Jack Ducey, and he has devised it so that at a glance you are able to take a look at your graph. And I think this is a very famous uh, famous I'm keeping an eye on the time, pardon me for that, just few minutes more, and then we will be open for questions and answer session. So communication breakdown, what happens that the child, they are trying to integrate their child to reconcile, but as a parental ego state, our parents ego state, we are not able to we are living in a different contrasting world, as we have seen many times, that the children, they are free from all these limitations, beliefs, dogmas, and prejudices. So when the communication breakdown is taking place in our personal and professional life, do you think it will be more important to make an attempt to realize what is hampering, and how can I bring this communication breakdown into a perfect practice of mending it as a small children, we can see, and the kind of covers which we have put ourselves around, to what extent are we allowing them to like break down the communication? Is this a communication barrier which I have created in myself, which is being created by me, my parental ego state, whichever way, well, like maybe critical or controlling or nurturing parent, or somewhere down the line, am I behaving from the adaptive of the natural child? This is something which is very, very important. So there are the last slide with ask yourself, what ego states are being activated in my transactions as coach or coachee by me and my partner or friend? If you want, you can please take a picture of this. Maybe later on, you will like to ask yourself, what ego states are being activated in my transactions when I'm transacting? And can I take a look at, can I record somewhere down the line? And can I read that or hear that recording and read the transcript sometime to understand how I have used the transaction as a coach? What ego state responses response am I or the other person is expecting? When I'm transacting or using adult mode of transaction, and I'm not getting that, then what kind of a behavior, what kind of a despondency, or what kind of disappointments do I tend to get, and then how I tend to behave as a coach and a coachee? What patterns do I see in my transactions? Is one ego state constantly being activated? It tends to get activated when I'm interacting with the seniors or my peers or my juniors. And you can identify it at your personal and professional front. That when I'm interacting at a personal front with my wife or colleague or my wife or my kids, which ego state I'm constantly getting activated? And is it the same way replicating in my professional behavior, professional transactions? And is it serving the purpose? Do I want this ego state to be activated like this? Is it serving the purpose? So I would like to stop sharing. So if there are any questions, any observations, anything which you feel that you have experienced, you can write down in the chat box. I'll be very happy to take that.
Thank you, Archana. Thank you very much for this very in-depth explanation of the concepts of transactional analysis. Archana, we have 2 questions and 5 minutes. So there's one person who says, yes, I am a coach and an employee. How do I know in which ego phase the coachee is? I would know mine if I work on it and reflect, but it will be difficult to know the phase of the person in front of me. So how will I know the ego phase of the coachee?
It's a thank you so much for asking a very powerful question. When you are talking to the concerned person, actually I'm so glad that you're a coach. So the a task of, the powerful open-ended questions, the questions you need to ask the concerned person in such a manner that you're asking about his or her life, what they have done, like what kind of a life he had, what kind of interactions, thoughts, patterns, and behavior. While you are, probing or through open-ended questions, going into depth in that particular person's lifestyle, you will get an idea from his or her behavior, anecdotes, the kind of questions the concerned person is asking. You will be able to know from which ego state the concerned person is like behaving or interacting with. It's not easy. It needs practice. It's not easy. It needs, as I've said, it needs practice, but I think it will be. Because once you start asking the powerful questions, open-ended powerful questions to the concerned person about his or her past, you will be able to know as some sort of, visualization exercise, which I have done in the beginning. If we don't have the time, otherwise we could have done a few more exercises of this sort. While you're going, I think somebody has written a beautiful, I was reading that story about the grandmother, black and white kitchen. So the kind of visualization, the smell, the joy, the emotions which a person tends to bring in, and the way it has been described and explained, it will be gradually, it will be possible for you as a coach and as an employee to find from which ego state, broadly, from which ego state the person is performing or the interacting or transacting. Any tips regarding this? I think it was a same person question.
I think it was the same person,
same
yes.
person. So this is the tip which I can give. And Eric Berne has written, there are many, many wonderful books. And one can go into depth into this particular art. And it gives a lot of, insight, because this is an unconscious behavior which the concerned person tends to bring. So deep delving into the unconscious of a person's past is a little bit of, a therapist kind of a role or a counselor kind of a role one has to take. But it's not difficult. With practice, I'm sure it will.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Archana.
Thank
So
you.
that was really very interesting, and I hope everybody can put a little bit into practice. So I want to thank everybody for having stayed to listen to this very profound, actually, presentation on who we are as human beings. And I want to thank Archana for having presented so in such detail and very gracefully. So goodbye, Archana. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you all.